So I'm Miranda with TierPoint. This is Rick Lunsberry, Channel Manager. I cover the South Florida market, so I support end customers here in South Florida as well as the greater partner community. I'm glad to meet with you all today, and my goal is to help you understand kind of where cloud fits beyond voice, beyond connectivity, and capitalize on some of the opportunities that I see popping up in the greater agent channel community. So our motto is hybrid IT, right? So 10 years ago, this conversation never would have happened. Now we're at a point where we see customers using multiple platforms to deliver applications and deliver experiences to their end users. So that traditional server compute model is kind of gone. We see customers using Amazon Web Services, Azure, other hyperscalers, other cloud type services all over the place. It's not one mode, it's multimodal, right? So TierPoint is a cloud, a managed services, and traditional co-location provider. We have 40 data centers from coast to coast. I'll flip to that here in a second. So this is our data center footprint. I know you guys are all familiar with data centers, kind of where we fit in the mold. One of the top 3 largest data center providers in the country. This kind of shows where our data center footprint is, along with our cloud pods, which I'll get into here in a little bit. But this is a good picture of all of our facilities. And we are carrier agnostic, so all the traditional carriers you work with, your level 3s, AT&Ts, Comcast, FPL, FiberLight, we're lit in many of our data centers. So foundations of hybrid IT, this is TierPoint at a glance. I've got some brochures to share with you all that you can take and kind of say, hey, when I'm having these conversations with my customers, what can I do and what can I maybe capitalize that I wouldn't normally be able to do? What can I leverage TierPoint to help me with? The TierPoint advantage, so where do we fit in the industry? Because we're a hybrid IT provider, we can provide a lot of the high-touch services and third-party services that wouldn't be available to a lot of the channel and agent community traditionally. I'm not going to go through all of it, but custom fit solutions. So I know that you've probably seen Rackspace and Amazon and AWS as kind of the larger cloud providers. We can get a lot more customized than that, right? I do a ton of private cloud, which is something that the big guys really stay away from. We can customize delivery models. We can customize disaster recovery and backup solutions based upon what your customers need, not what fits in a box and what is traditionally a SKU. High-speed connectivity between facilities. So you saw my data center footprint. We've got a mesh network. We provide redundancy and resiliency for anyone that's in our data centers. We can replicate from site to site, which is especially important during hurricane season if you've got assets that are possibly compromised from a storm. 24/7, 365, all U.S.-based support. So we are tier one support provider for all of the solutions that we deliver. And customer service is superior, right? That's what we hang our hat on. That's where we differentiate ourselves. So you saw this before. So this is where the rubber meets the road, and this is where I ask for your help and your attention, right? So the cloud is not just for PBX and voice anymore. I think that's where people have become very comfortable because we've all been selling connectivity and selling carrier services and VoIP for a long time. But it really is just the tip of the iceberg. And I think it's evidenced by some of the deals that we've been working on with Cynthia and with some of Rob's channel partners. If the tip of the iceberg is the carrier and the voice and the MPLS and the internet, if that's $2,000, there's $8,000 worth of cloud managed services infrastructure that someone else is capitalizing on, right? Somebody else is talking to your customers about this. So the key is to get in early and start asking the questions early so that you get a seat at the table. So who should sell TierPoint? So traditional agents, right? I kind of see it as 2 different buckets here, right? We've got a lot of talented people who have sold voice and VoIP and hosted PBX and cloud PBX now, very comfortable with the cloud in that capacity, and also know the carrier services and know fixed wireless and point-to-point connections and know how to design networks, right? Uncovering the opportunity for cloud early is critical because your customers are talking about this. We see it all the time. Hey, I heard my customers say they were thinking about going to AWS. Oh wait, that's actually already happened. Well, when you first went in to meet this customer and they said they were interested in a new phone system, did you ask them what they were doing for their end user computing? Where do their applications live? You can have great resiliency and redundancy in network infrastructure, but if what's on the other end of that network infrastructure is wiped out because of a flood or a hurricane or a virus or malware, where are you going to connect to, right? The end user still can't do their job, right? Does that make sense? Anybody?
Yeah, that's critical because if not, if you don't ask
So you just hit on a great point too, right? And we've got a very informed customer that's being hammered with the Microsoft Azure commercials. When you watch PGA Tour on Sunday, you've got IBM Watson and the great things they're doing in healthcare. You have a very informed customer who is doing their own research, right? So they also have other vendors in the account that are trying to understand what the cloud computing future is for customers. So to be in on the front end of it, like Cynthia just said there, to be asking these questions early really helps you get the seat at the table. And I'm going to go through an example where we did get the seat early, kind of by accident, but it's actually looking really good. And I'm fingers crossed. It looks like it could happen this month. But just because the agent that was in there thought they were in there to sell them voice, found out, hey, they've got a very large cloud computing initiative and they're moving offices and they've got to make a decision pretty quickly, right?
One last thing I want to say, I also recently learned that customers, even small customers, spend tons of money on AWS and Azure, and their back-end support for these. They spend a lot of money, like a small 10-person law firm can spend $20,000, $30,000 a month supporting AWS. People don't even know that. So I just recently learned that it's a big world. It's a huge place you can tap into and help customers shape that, or align with tier point or with the services or aviate something with the service, right?
Manage, right? So one of the drawbacks to working with the hyperscalers, you just mentioned Amazon Web Services, is the support model, right? And it's a solid platform. I'm not in the business of trying to convince people they should move away from it unless they have a good, compelling reason. But the support model could be a very good, compelling reason. In order to get live support through AWS or through Azure, Microsoft's hyperscaler product, you have to pay for premium support. And so that's potentially, if a customer needs that type of hands-on support, TierPoint can be that first line of support for them, or maybe architect a disaster recovery plan out of Amazon or out of Azure, because as we've seen, there have been a couple of major outages lately that have been fairly disruptive. So we always say, just don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Unless they're going to be the TierPoint basket, but no, just kidding. So yeah, there's it's not one solution, right? It's hybrid IT. It's multiple solutions, and you really need to spread your risk profile across multiple vendors to ensure that you're not going to be compromised if there's a major outage. So who should sell TierPoint? Okay, I just went over the agent piece. Any questions about how? No, everybody wants lunch. That's fine. And then MSPs. So a couple different ways we work with MSPs. You saw my list of services, right? So we can white label or white glove a lot of the services that we provide, so that you can provide this to your end customer in gaps where you may not have the functionality today. The second way is I'm going to talk about this managed services partner example too. So Cynthia and I we're talking to somebody about this. They have a managed services practice. They've got 5 or 6 customers. A few of them are on Amazon. A few of them are looking at doing something in the cloud. What's the right mix there, right? So what we can do is create a private cloud for this managed services provider, where TierPoint provides the hosting, provides the hardware, provides the maintenance and monitoring, and that managed services provider can then provision out services in their private cloud and then charge their customers monthly for whatever resources they're consuming. So this is the way, if you have customers that are using Amazon, using Azure, using another cloud provider, you can potentially capture those resources and make some money on what they're already doing and bringing that in-house. And then you can also provide whatever managed services on top that you wouldn't have access to through some of the hyperscalers. Let's see. So that's my pitch for MSPs. Questions for uncovering opportunities. I always just say, hey, what's on the other end of that connection, right? So you need an internet connection, or you need, a layer 2 connection to a data center somewhere. What's on the other end of that? Do you have a SaaS application? Is it your servers in a physical location? Or is it just a phone, right? It could be just a phone. That's what we're used to asking. What are the critical business applications that you have, and where do they live? So we live in a Salesforce.com society where we've got, a multitude of applications provided by the cloud. Secondly, what about the other cloud providers that they may be using, or are they connected to another data center? And then what are you doing for disaster recovery? So TierPoint is in Gartner. If you're familiar with Gartner, we're in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for disaster recovery. Big topic down here right now. We're headed into hurricane season. If you have customers that are worried about the life of their applications, the life of their business, if they've got a critical billing application that just can't go down no matter what happens, well, what happens if a flood comes in and the server room's knocked out, right? So we can talk about all of those various scenarios and help them plan for disaster and figure out, what the best fit is for making sure that their business stays online and they can continue to operate in the event of a disaster. And then, are you looking at Microsoft, Azure, Office 365, or AWS? So we're service provider for all of those. Just another potential revenue stream. If it's something that you're not able to deliver today, then we can come in and talk to the customer about, our capabilities there, and you can be the agent of record and make residual on that. So anatomy of a deal. This is the deal. I think Rob Hill, he's in here. His agent brought us this originally. Went in to sell them 150 new phones for their brand new office suite. They said, also, do you know anything about cloud? Because we're looking at moving this big application that we have to the cloud. Turns out they do research for pharmaceutical companies. Huge, like 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte data set. So really, really resource intensive. It's on premise. They have to be HIPAA compliant. They have to follow a number of compliances beyond that, just to keep their certification and to keep their business coming, right? So, the agent says, hey, I'm going to get back to you, but I think we've got a couple of fits for you, right? So calls us up. Hey, it turns out this is right in our wheelhouse, and we can actually provide it in a customized kind of private cloud setting for far less than what they'd be able to get through an Amazon or through an Azure or through a Rackspace because of the unique requirements. Heavily data intensive, not compute intensive. So big data, like 30 terabytes of data, right? Some big data sets. So what they went in there originally to sell, a hosted PBX for $2,100 a month, became hosted PBX. That's great. $8,100 in back-end cloud services, just because they found the opportunity, right? And we engaged at the right time. So they asked me for an MSA last week. That's usually a good sign. We're going to hope all goes well and we get a PO here shortly. But that's my tip of the iceberg, right? So what we're traditionally used to selling is what we're comfortable with, but when we ask the uncomfortable questions, then we can uncover all kinds of opportunity that somebody else is going to uncover if we don't. And the second one was Cynthia's managed services partner, right? So what's possible? Let's not be short-sighted and then just throw them into Azure, throw them into AWS when maybe there's a better solution for them that can provide more value and touch more of their organization through a fully managed cloud offering in one of our data centers. So okay, that's all I had. Oh wait, this is the best part. SPIF Q2 Q3. So 1 month MRR minimum $2,500 up to $20,000. If anybody brings me a deal more than $20,000, then I'll take it to management. Get paid. Minimum 12-month term for any of the services that we sell. So if you have any customers looking for co-location, cloud, or managed services, it applies to all of them. All right, go Rich.
Yeah, so it's a very tech engagement process, and we try and make it as easy as possible for our partners. So we have 120 sales and pre-sales resources around the country that can help you with opportunities. Miranda is down here in a local resource, but our typical engagement process is with the partner and the customer and going through multiple different whiteboarding sessions, drawing stuff out for all these solutions and all the different ways to do it. We also have the capability of doing cloud readiness assessments where we can map all their applications and the interdependency of those applications, and then we can get into the security requirements, and then we can do estimated costs in our private cloud, our multi-tenant cloud, Azure, and AWS as well too. So we can represent all those and we can manage all those for clients as well too. But that's where we do really well with you guys, is when we're in those technical discussions and going through multiple different whiteboarding sessions with you guys and your clients. So with all the whiteboarding and pre-sales stuff, it's all free, part of the sales process. We have 2 forms of the cloud readiness assessment. One is free, and it doesn't really give a whole lot of information. The other one, you guys can use that as a tool to get reoccurring revenue, because it is a one-time engagement. So it's not something, but we want to be the end state, and it's a tool to get us. And we charge like $120 VM for the full-blown assessment where all the applications and the interdependencies are all mapped out, and sometimes you can see where things are, broken, as well too. And then also being able to do the estimates on the different platforms, what it would cost, and then what platforms are best for the certain workloads. And then on top of that, it goes into the migration strategy with a layout of what gets moved when and how it's done too. It's a really neat, offering that we have with that cloud readiness assessment. The basic version is more just like an inventory, and that's free. But a lot of times, customers know they want to get out of the infrastructure business and they want to, outsource it, but they don't know where to start. They don't know how to get there, and that's what we can help them, with, or where to go with it as well too.
Based on VMware or Hyper-V?
So all our cloud platforms are based on VMware, but like those tools, it's hypervisor, agnostic. And it's the same thing when we're providing DR as a service. That's also hypervisor agnostic. And we have the capability of backing up physical machines, different virtual machines. We can meet all different times of recovery time and recovery point objectives depending on the customer's needs. I think some of our, believe it or not, more complicated products are backup and our DR as a service, because we have like 7 different backup technologies that we can use depending on the circumstance, and then 7 different replication technologies that we can use depending on what the customer's infrastructure looks like, and then what their recovery time and recovery point objectives are. Seem like it's all easy to sell? No, but if, during that sales process, because it is very consultative, we get to spend a lot of time building that trust, going through all the pre-sales technical discussions, and it helps build a lot of confidence. It's a lot harder when you bring us into an engagement and the customer already is like, oh, I know what I want and I know what I want to do. Most likely they've already been talking to somebody else. And then we're coming in from behind. Not that we can't win, but it's a little more challenging.